Hi, everyone. I'm Soby Chako. I'm a member of the Spring engineering team at VMware. These days, along with Chris, I work on Spring for Apache Pulsar project. Otherwise, I'm actually a member of the Spring Cloud Stream team, where my focus is the Kafka ecosystem of various binders that we provide. On to Chris.
I'm Chris Bono. I'm a software engineer on the Spring team at VMware. And as Soby mentioned, I spend a lot of time on the Spring for Apache Pulsar project. And if I'm not doing that, you can find me in Spring Cloud Dataflow or the Spring Cloud Stream Applications projects. And today we have limited time, and so we're going to talk to you about the framework, Spring for Apache Pulsar. We will give you a high-level overview, and then we'll spend the remainder of the time showing you how to use the framework with a live demo.
All right, so you might be wondering, what is Spring for Apache Pulsar? Spring for Apache Pulsar is a new ecosystem of projects that we added to the larger Spring ecosystem. It is actually a project in which we provide Spring-friendly abstraction. So if you're familiar with projects like Spring for Apache Kafka, Spring MQP, Spring JMS, things like that, we provide the same type of experience through Spring for Apache Pulsar, where you can focus on your business logic without worrying about too many lower level details. So this is like a new entrant into the larger Spring ecosystem of projects, Spring for Apache Pulsar. And it also adds support for messaging related use cases, as we're going to see later on through this talk.
And the architecture looks a little bit like this. We hook onto the Java clients that Pulsar provides, the imperative client that ships with Pulsar, and then the reactive client that's a newly introduced Apache top-level project. And we auto-configure those clients via Spring Boot auto configuration. This lets you do things like get in your application YAML and type spring.pulsar.client.service URL equals, and I get to list my coordinates. And it brings that type safe configuration to the clients. We also, you have a Pulsar listener annotation that you can annotate your methods with in a bean, and it will feed data into there from the Pulsar topics. And on the produce side, there's a Pulsar template to send to topics. And this uses these leverage the imperative client. And there is a reactive counterpart that uses the reactive client, reactive Pulsar listener, and reactive Pulsar template. If you used Kafka, Spring Kafka, you're probably used to the Kafka listener and the Kafka template. And if you use Spring AMQP, there's a Rabbit listener and a Rabbit template. JMS template, JMS listener. This is the Spring messaging template pattern. And so if you're used to using those, you'll fit right in here.
So one thing I want to add, Chris, here is that you can actually use this framework with like plain standard Spring framework using XML maybe. But although that is possible, we recommend these days to start with Spring Boot, because that will give a lot of production grade things that you can use in your application right away, ready-made for the application developer. So start with Spring Boot if at all possible.
Absolutely.
So some additional features that we support in this ecosystem of Pulsar support for Spring is a dedicated binder for Apache Pulsar, so that you can basically write your applications using the programming model supported by Spring Cloud Stream. For example, you can write a Java function or a Java consumer or a supplier, and then add this Pulsar binder to the class path. Then immediately you get the connectivity from end to end, like input topic to an output topic, or you can do some processing in between. So there's a dedicated Pulsar binder available in Spring Cloud Stream right now. Similarly, in the core framework itself, Spring Pulsar, we provide some built-in support for Pulsar IO and Pulsar functions, so that that process or experience will be a little bit more easier when you use the support that's available from the framework.
Also, I'm sure over the last couple of years, you've heard about you've heard of a lot of business about GraalVM. And for me, I say GraalVM takes a Java program and makes it small and makes it fast. It boils it down to the native machine language of the runtime that the JVM's on. And the Pulsar, the framework also provides support for that. There's a lot of underlying support built in from Spring framework in general, but we also extend that a bit so that if you want to use GraalVM, it's a seamless experience. We also provide free metrics and tracing via the micrometer observations API, and on the imperative side. That the support for the reactive side is coming soon. We also do some smarts around schema and topic resolution, such that we can look at some of the messages coming and going and automatically set up the schema. That's basically the data types that are going across the wire.
All right, so you might be wondering, why do I have to use this new framework in Spring to write my Pulsar-based applications? Why can't I use Pulsar Java client directly? Of course, you can use them directly, but the benefit in our experience is that by using the Spring Pulsar framework, it gives you that immediate productivity that Spring Boot has championed. Because as we explained already, if you're starting with the Spring Boot foundations, you already get the benefit of a lot of built-in components that Boot provides. Along with that, as Chris explained, for example, you can just include a Pulsar template in the application, or auto-aware Pulsar template, or just annotate your method with Pulsar listener, then your method becomes the Pulsar consumer immediately. So you don't have to write the lower level Pulsar Java clients directly because the framework already does that. So in a nutshell, Spring Pulsar essentially provides you with immediate developer velocity and a better experience of writing, Java-based Pulsar applications. And in the upcoming live demo, we're going to show you, how that can be possible, using the framework.
And so the favorite part, the live demo. So let's get to this. We're going to do an app. We're going to do user registration app where we take a user object and we're going to produce it to a topic and consume from a topic. And we'll take that through evolution. We'll start imperative, then we'll go to reactive, then we'll do Spring Cloud Stream, and then we'll ultimately run that through the GraalVM grinder and see what that does, how fast, how much of an improvement that is. And so what we're looking at here is the start.spring.io. This is a way to get your apps bootstrapped very quickly using Spring Boot and Spring other projects. And so, for instance, Gradle, Java, Spring Boot 306. Here's my coordinates. We're going to do a jar packaging, Java 7.
If I want to use Maven, for example, it should be possible, right? It's pretty easy.
Yeah, there's a radio button for that. So if you so choose, you could pick Maven right there.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Gradle, but I use both interchangeably, but I'm gonna pick Gradle today. Okay, so let's generate the app. So there we go. It plopped out a zip file. So now what I want to do is open this up. Bear with me, into IntelliJ, and let's open it up. All right. And what we have here is a simple Java application, nothing in it. It does, however, have Spring Pulsar, Spring Boot starter on the class path. So without further ado, let's hop in here. And what we want to do is user registration. And so I'm going to create a user, public record user, string, username. That's it. If you haven't used Java records yet, it's fun. Makes things simple. And so real quickly, let's create a user service. We'll mock out a user service, not necessarily a mock. We're going to do something simple. Service. Let's also do one thing I know we're going to need is JSON starter. Maybe this, can't see. Okay. And so back to here. All right. Let's see. Private final object mapper. And so let's do, I have a few templates here set up ahead of time. So what we want to do here is this, we're going to use this users data generator app. And you can tell it's just going to give us random users through here. And so we use the HTTP, the built-in HTTP client from Java 11, just so that we don't have another dependency. Typically, I would probably use Webflux or the Spring Web client for this. This is just one less dependency on the class path for us as we go through the demo. And so ultimately, this is going to generate a single user. And I needed JSON so that we could do the object mapper. And so at this point, let's create a public user, single user. And this would return single user async.join. There we go. And at this point, what we have is a simple API that returns a single user. So let's come back over to our app. I don't recommend using field injection. The only reason we're using this is because it's a demo and it's easy to show it less screen being taken up. And so Pulsar template of user. And so here's our user template. And then auto wired private user service. And so now let's send a message. Source user to Pulsar. Okay. And what we want to do is say var message ID equals user template dot send to the user topic. User service dot single user and schema dot JSON of user. This is how we tell Pulsar, hey, we want to encode this as a user JSON object.
Do I need to create that topic when I run this app?
Oh, good question. No, you don't. So by default, Pulsar will create one for you. We also have the ability in the framework to create a bean of type Pulsar topic that lets you specify more things like partitions, etc. By default, I think there's like a one partition topic that'll be created really for dev purposes. You want to create it up front yourself. Good point. We don't do that because it's a demo and want to do it quickly.
Sure, no problem.
Good point. Okay, so at this point, that's it. So what I've done is we have here is a user template that's going to send this to the user topic, and then we're just going to say produce and show you that we produced. On the flip side of that, let's do Pulsar listener topics, user topic, and then we'll say schema type JSON. And then what I want to do here is say void log user from Pulsar. Okay. And so it gets passed in the user. And all we want to do is say system out. Also, another thing, this is demo. We don't system out typically. So we're doing that just to avoid, just for simplicity today. I don't always code like this is what I'm saying. Okay. And so at this point, we've consumed one more thing. We have to figure out we want to get these users continuously coming into the system. Let's use scheduled. We'll say initial delay 1 second, and then every other second we'll write a new user. One last thing we have to do here is enable scheduling. And I just realized in my brain that I forgot to do a start the server up. So here in Docker, I will do a Pulsar start. And we're going to run a local Pulsar 3.0 container here. And so let me come back here for a second. Let's check our work. And so every second, we're going to take a user from that service and we're going to write it to the user topic. And then we're going to, on the consume side, see what we sent into that topic. As soon as this thing's up and running, I'm going to push the play button. Let's see. Okay, I can't wait. Let's just push it now. I'm kidding. It's up and running. All right. And there we go. Produce, consume, produce, consume, produce, consume. This is what we'll see for each step in our demo today. That's the success factor, is we see produce and consume. Let me stop that real quick. One thing I wanted to show is that this use is a little bit terse, right? We're having to say the topic, the schema, and I think we can do a little bit better. So let's change this application properties that it generated to an application YAML. Let's do these defaults I was talking about earlier. So we can say message, default type mappings, it's this message type is a user class. Let's say topic name is user topic. This is that default I was talking about. And so another thing, let me drop some of this log level out. Jump back to the Pulsar app. So what I want to do is to be able to chop out the specification of that topic, because I know I always write or read from a user topic in this case. And let's hit the play button.
So that topic is essentially attached to that particular type. Right?
Yes, exactly. So if you specify topic 2 on the API calls, it'll ignore the default. But it's just, it allows you to, in simple cases, to do that. And one other little cleanup is that really we can get rid of the whole JSON schema, because that is our default. When the framework sees a complex object type, if there's not a schema configured for it on the API, it'll use JSON. So I should be able to push play and see the same thing. So we had the same result, but we chopped back some of our the having to specify extra details.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Stop that. Okay, so we've done imperative. Now we have a need to do reactive. The user service, for instance, has published their new reactive API. It's going to look like this: public flux of user. Yeah. Yep. Oh, where did you go? Okay. Oh, real quick. It doesn't know what a flux is because I haven't came back to here and added Pulsar. There's our reactive. So let's look into explore here. I'm going to copy this. We won't do the whole import again, of course. And let's come back to our build Gradle. I will tell you what's changed. You'll see there's a reactive starter in there now. I'm going to add back in my JSON starter. I'm going to pop Gradle so it refreshes. There we go. Let's try this again. Okay, there's my flux. Okay, there's our flux. Let's say multiple users. Okay, what do we want to do? Let's say return mono from future. And then we will say, we'll supply this dot single user async. And then we will do a delay, duration of seconds 1. And then we will do this handy dandy repeat to give us a flux. Every second is going to drop us a new user as a flux. That's it. So there's this new API, a reactive API out there we want to take advantage of. How do we do that? So let's do reactive Pulsar template. Okay. Boom. That's what changes there. Okay. This will be a little bit different. We won't schedule. So we're getting a hold of a flux. We just need to get a hold of that stream once and then subscribe to it. And from that point on, the data is flowing. So what we want to do here that's a little bit different is we'll say, okay, let's say user service, multiple users. There's my flux. There's our flux. And let's say map to message spec of. And so this is the reactive client consumes things in terms of message specs. It gives some more information. So we'll want to do that. And for each one of these, we will take a user. And what we will do here is we will say user template dot send. We don't have to specify user topic anymore. Remember, really all we have to do is say the user. And then from here, we will do let's do one more thing. Do on next. Let's prove that we remember our success is that we see our message being sent. And so this is a little bit different, that we have send result, that's dot get message ID. And then now let's start the flow. Boom, subscribe. Okay, how do I know a good way to kick this thing off once at startup. Let's use an application runner. And then we will, that's application runners is a Spring Boot thing where when these beans are available, it'll run them once the server's up and running. It does look a little bit different in that it is a return of an args, and then like this, come down here, boom. And so there we go. We have used our reactive client now to produce from our flux of users. We could totally use this interchangeably. We could use a Pulsar listener with the reactive Pulsar listener. I'm going to skip that for now just because we're tight on time. And so what changes here with the reactive listener is ever so slightly, we return a mono, a void. Let's see this. Okay. And then one more thing, we have to return that mono. This is how we signal to the flow there that, yes, I was able to process the message or not. If we weren't able to handle it, we could do a mono error. we're going to return a mono empty to say everything's good. We'll come back to this reactive Pulsar listener in a minute. Let's push the play button. There we go. Same thing. Produce, consume. Now we're doing it reactively. One thing I want to point out here is if we come back here, this reactive Pulsar listener, if you're an avid reactor reactor user, you're probably saying, this doesn't look very reactive. It's just a regular user. I would expect to see something along the lines of a flux of users. And really, trust me, it's reactive. The reactive client has this concept of a messaging pipeline. And what you do is you say, hey, here's my callback. And so this is being called in the scope of a bigger flux, if you will, a bigger pipeline. And so this just passes in the user as a map operation. And so, but you can also say, hey, you know what? I want you to stream these to me. For instance, let's see, a flux of message of user. And I'll show you why here in a minute. This is a wrapper around that. Let's call this users. Let's make sure we turn on stream true. That's what makes this thing happen. And what changes here is that we'll say, okay, now let's do and this will return a flux of message result. Message results. Okay. These are message result, message spec. These are part of the reactive client. These are their constructs. Okay, so we'll take this users, and then we'll say for each one we'll say do on next. All we want to do is user this system out print line user.get value, because we wrapped it in a message object, a Pulsar message. And then one more thing we want to do is say map, and hold on, map this user, let's do message acknowledgement, or message result acknowledge. Yes, it's the reactive API is designed such that you can do things really concise like this, such that message result has an acknowledge. That's why I used a message up here. There was a reason for that. And so that's it. And so we return this. And so for this looks a little more fluxy, a little more probably what you're used to seeing. Let's run it as well. Yep. There we go. Okay, so let's take it one step further. I was almost stopping the share button. Let's do something interesting. Let's register the users. Right now we're just users in, users out. Let's say we have this concept of a registered user. That is a user with a tier, okay? And then what a tier, we'll define a tier as public enum tier. Let's do free, no money, a little money, all the money. Okay. And now what we want to do is let's forget about Pulsar. Let's forget about bindings. Let's forget about middleware. Let's say I want to create a POJO function called public function, take a user, do something, return a registered user, right? So register user, we'll call this. And then we'll do this. Oh, yep. Say return user. And what we'll do is return a, oh boy, slow it down. New registered user, takes a user. And let me just do another don't do this at home thing is, this is not a super random number. Don't do it this way, but it's good for a demo. And we'll say tier.values, and then we'll say ran.nextInt bounded by tier.values.length. And so I think this will do what we want. Okay. Let's do this. Let's do this. Replace with expression lambda. And here we have this function. It's going to take a user. It's going to randomly attribute a tier to it. So it would be nice if we could take this user from the user topic and then do our magic on it, and then spit it out to this registered, create a registered user topic. And so this fits the bill of Spring Cloud Stream, right? So if we turn this into a bean, and then if I come over, one more thing, always got to remember there's magic that makes it happen by putting this on the class path. Let's go back here to Pulsar. You can see we have Cloud Stream as an option. If I explore here, copy, come back to our build.gradle, drop it in. There's some stuff that's been added. You might notice there is Spring Cloud Stream Pulsar, Spring Cloud Stream Binder. There's a couple of other libraries, but that's the main one there that we're focus of our talk. Okay, so let's pop Gradle. We've got the dependencies. So let's come back. So how do we say Spring Cloud Stream, go get this from one topic and put it in this other topic? We have to configure it. And so let's do Spring Cloud function.definition. When there's only one function, you don't have to do this. I'm just doing it for completeness. Spring Cloud Stream. I'm going to go ahead and, because we're low on time, I'm going to cheat and say Spring Cloud. Let me go over here and do my Spring Cloud Stream bindings. Okay. Wait. Spring Cloud Stream. There we go. I think it's right here. Okay. There we go. And so this is that parameter 0 of the registered user method, the input parameter 0, the first one. And this is register user out. Spring Cloud Stream works on a naming convention. And so it's really easy to say this is our first parameter. We're going to get it from the user topic. We're going to send it out to the registered user topic. You'll notice this use native decoding. With Spring Cloud Stream, you can decide whether you want to handle the encoding and decoding of the objects, or you want to let the framework, the Spring Cloud Stream core framework, handle it. We're going to handle it through Pulsar because that's how we've been doing it with our schema JSON bindings. And so we have to tell the system just a little bit more information. And so let me go Spring Cloud Stream here, Pulsar bindings. Okay, let me just scoot this back over. And this looks very similar to what we did above, Spring Cloud. Oh, bear with me. Spring Cloud Stream Pulsar bindings. There we go. And so it's very similar to what we did above. It just says, hey, for this register user parameter, this is the message type. And that's how we know how to serialize it to and from. So my theory is at this point, I can push the play button and we're going to see one more thing. Let's prove this by, we need to switch this to registered user, right? We're going to do something different with it now. And then also, we don't have a default topics combined here. So let's reg user topic. I'm going to make sure that's what I called it. Schema type JSON, even though we really don't have to do that. I'm just going to, let's see. Did I call it registered? I didn't. I called it registered user. Okay, let's do this. These have to match. Okay. My theory is I'm going to push the play button and we're going to see the same thing with some registered information, some tier attribution. Boom, there it is. Basic, free. Okay, real quick, since we're low on time, I'm going to stop there. Started the Pulsar app in 1.846 seconds, right? Okay, I want to do one thing. I'm going to come over here to Gradle. We're going to pull in what we need for GraalVM. Let's do this, okay? Let's explore. Let me copy this out one more time. This will be our last foray into Spring IO for the demo. Okay. And so at this point, let me pop Gradle. What we're going to do is come over here to the terminal. I'm going to use Java 17 Grail. And we are going to do a Gradle native compile. Okay. We're going to put this through the GraalVM grinder. Let's go back to here. Yep, build successful. So it took 1 minute and 39 seconds to build. It says it dropped it out here under build native compile Pulsar. What does it do? Okay, the startup is drastically faster, right? So it was what? And it's doing same program we just run. It's the Spring Cloud Stream program, 0.178 seconds versus 1.8 to 0.18, right? So huge improvement. Thank y'all for coming. And here we have some reference information. If you want to know more, the demo, there's a link to the actual demo there with step-by-step for commits for what we did.
Please come and start the repository and then file any issues or bugs bug fix reports or feature requests and things like that in the repository. Thank you once again.
Thank you all.